question is, when do I start recording? we thought we would try this. We're trying to do this right and have at least 6 feet between us. We're trying to get practiced as we prepare to reopen City Hall, council members, and so we'll probably be wearing masks where we're in common areas, and especially where we're not sure we can social distance 6 feet. So you'll notice several people have masks on, and I've got mine here until President Williams gets me my Trailblazer one, Ralph. I've got my red colors, and I've got to get a BYU one for the city manager so he can wear something other than that, baby blue one. But you got that. Perfect. So we've all kind of found our things, and appreciate everyone trying the best they can to help. Really what the masks are about, if you remember, it's really about helping protect other people. It's not so much about ourselves, although it helps, but it really helps, I think, with others. So anyhow, and we have had a fairly large number of new cases in the last week in Washington County. About, what did I say earlier, Adam? 73 new cases in the last 7 days in our county. So we do need to be a little careful. That was bound to happen as we reopened, but actually because we've reopened, we probably need to be a little more careful. And so we're, as I said last week, we're going to do what we can to educate and to remind, not to shame, but and not to force, just to, try to help people kind of realize the options and the precautions that would be most effective. Still the best, I'm told by every doctor I talk to, the best thing is washing hands frequently and hand sanitizer and not touching our faces. That's another thing the masks kind of help with, is it reminds you, don't touch your face. So there's some things there. It also is good if you have the cloth masks, folks. Remember, you got to wash them once in a, I don't know, Danielle, what do you think? Once a month or two? No, I'm just kidding. Frequently. There you go. Oh, that's a good idea. For all you guys, a lot more often. Yeah. So, yeah, because that might be about once a year when you go home, right, Danielle? Okay. Well, welcome to our city council meeting. We're going to ask that James open the meeting now. In terms of, we've got kind of a waiting room where people that are online on Zoom now can be with us in the meeting as we get started officially. Thank you, James and Mark. If you were here in City Hall, it's kind of the funniest thing. Mark and I were laughing as we walked in here earlier today because we just have these chairs set up every, kind of a radius of 6 feet. It looks funny, but we're trying to do this right and be able to have a combination, electronic, distanced meeting as well as in person. We feel maybe at least a little better connected doing that. But I want both the council and the public and our staff to know it is still an option to participate by Zoom, and our wonderful IT staff is helping to make that possible, as well as the community education channel today. As far as we know, how's that working, Mark and James and CEC? Good, thumbs up. Awesome, glad to hear it. We sure appreciate our staff for everything they do to make these things and so many others work. So we're going to get started, and we're pleased to have with us Ralph and Sherry Atkin. They come together almost always, and that is the story of their lives, and I think a great story for us to model. Ralph is going to offer an invocation representing the St. George Area Interfaith Council, and I believe the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, his faith group.
That's correct. Thank you, Mayor. Our dear Heavenly Father, we bow our heads in prayer. So grateful for the freedoms that we have in this great land, and so grateful to live in this Dixie area. And we're so grateful, Father, for those who are willing to serve this community, as it takes much time and effort to prepare and contemplate those things that would be in the best interest of our community. We pray for thy blessings and spirit to be with our mayor, with the members of the city council and all the staff, that they may always consider that which would be in the best interest of the citizens of this great city. We're so grateful for all that we have here, the recreational facilities, the roads, and all the things that make life wonderful. Grateful for the economic development that's taken place here. And we invoke thy spirit, Father, to be upon this community and especially upon this city council, that they may be able to direct the affairs of this city as they are prompted by thee. We express our love to thee and gratitude to thee for all that we have in this great land of America. And we say this in the name of thy beloved Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Ralph. We'll rise and say the pledge if we could. Before Ralph and Sherry leave, though, you prayed about economic development. Just a reminder, folks, where would our area be without the economic development that came from the founding of SkyWest? So thank you, Ralph and Sherry, for being the founders of SkyWest. It's incredible. Thank you so much for all you do, both of you. All right, Greg, will you lead us in the pledge? Sure. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Ralph, again. See you later. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, Council, before we go to the written agenda, I've got one thing I'd like to ask for your help in. Might mention this to those who are watching today and the Council. Obviously, anything that comes before the council today is going to need a unanimous vote in order to pass whatever motion that might be. I believe our staff has notified those who are on the agenda and maybe several who might have been on the agenda to let them know that. I think there might have been one issue that decided to wait because of that, just to make sure they felt like they needed full council participation. So, but before we go to the written agenda, the Mayor's Association Tuesday talked about something that, while symbolic, we thought might be of interest to us to consider as a council. We'd like to make a proclamation congratulating the high school senior class of 2020 in all of our high schools in the county. And so we're going to make it pretty, but it's going to have all of the signatures of the mayors from around the county, and I'd love to have you hear it and hopefully make a motion that we approve it so that we can tell them we've done that in our council meeting. Does that sound good? We just, it's a little thing, but with all that they've kind of given up the last couple months, we thought it might be nice for them to hear from us as their local governments. So it says this: together, the citizens of Washington County, along with elected officials representing those citizens, would like to acknowledge and congratulate the graduating classes of 2020. As graduating seniors, our students have accomplished so much and have risen above challenges that other classes and generations have not been faced with. Along with the usual pressures of high school, including grades, college applications, career decisions, ever-increasing social media pressure, etc., these seniors have now had to deal with a global pandemic. Graduating high school is not only a big achievement, but is also a rite of passage into adulthood. Although school leaders were also faced with uncertainty and constant changing restrictions, each high school went above and beyond to make graduation an event to be remembered. I actually watched Dixie's last night. It was pretty cool how they did it. The schools hosted virtual ceremonies which included music and school highlights, graduation videos, and provided photo and filming opportunities of the graduates walking across the stages in their caps and gowns. Our schools provided a positive graduation experience that some seniors expressed was more special and personalized than it would have been otherwise. In this unprecedented time in history, our 2020 says 2200, but I think they meant 2020. Sean and I will make sure that that gets fixed on the county's copy. Graduating seniors in Washington County have a unique opportunity. Adversity is always met by opportunity for growth. Our seniors already have the tools they need to succeed and to meet and rise above these challenges. They have proven that they will do this through their resilience. We are proud of the class of 2020 and are confident that this year's graduates will have an outsized positive impact in our community, nation, and world. And that would be signed by the county commission chair and then all of the mayors from the different cities and towns. First of all, any thoughts, council, before I ask for a motion to approve this proclamation?
Not a lot for us to do, but that is, I think, they're well deserved of it. And if there was more we could do, I think that would be a great thing. But I think I'm all for it, so thank you.
I think what we're going to try to do is, with the help of the maybe the different public information officers around the county, put all the logos around the letter. It'll just be kind of fun. I mean, it's like you say, Brian, it's a small thing, but it's something that the other year students don't get. So, at least something.
Mayor, honestly, it's been totally fun to watch the kids in my neighborhood. They've just been so positive and resilient about this. And, it's something they look forward to their whole lives. And they've just been like, all right, we're disappointed, but we're going to make the best of it. I've been really proud of them.
Thank you, Danielle. I'm only aware of a couple of things, but the Dixie High has the bucket run, to paint the Dixie. Mm-hmm. They did a modified bucket run. They're trying so hard to just do things the way they're asked to, so they couldn't hand each other the buckets, Greg. But I don't know how they did it, but they did it. I don't know what they did, but somehow they made a modified, socially distanced bucket run work. And they did that last week. This morning, I believe, Desert Hills got the key, or got our folks to open where the water tower is, so they could go up and do whatever they do. They paint I don't know what they do on the water tank, but they did their modified version of a tradition. So everyone's been working really hard, I think, to try to fit, some celebrations and traditions in with the wretched COVID-19 mess. So anyway, Greg, any thoughts you have as a Dixie High School graduate, right?
Yeah, well, I just can't imagine having that disruption in my senior year. It's such a big part of your life at that time. And to see, I have some nieces and nephews that are that age, and to see the resilience and the way they've come together, and just the amazing things that this class has done in this turmoil, it's incredible. So they're a strong class, and it's amazing.
Well, thanks for your comments. Is there someone that would make a motion and a second to adopt this proclamation?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, Mayor, to approve this resolution of support for our high school seniors.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's made by Danielle and seconded by Brian, and I think Greg would third it, right, if there were
Absolutely.
such a thing?
Third.
Okay, all right, there we go. Any discussion? I think we've had it. All in favor, starting with Greg, say aye.
Aye.
Danielle?
Aye.
And Brian?
Aye.
Thank you very much. That passes unanimously, and I'll let the county know, and we'll work on that. David, we might need you to work with Sasha, I believe it is, at the county tourism. I think she's kind of there acting as their PIO, so she's the one that I think is going to put this together. And I have an electronic copy, but I don't think you need it. They'll work on that part. I didn't mention we wish to excuse council members Jimmy Hughes and Michelle Randall, and we hope to see them next time. We'll just leave it at that. And Adam, any changes to our agenda?
Nope, no changes. We're ready to go.
Okay, let's do it. Consent calendar?
Any questions or discussion on any of these items?
Council, any?
I didn't have any.
Just a short one today, relatively, but any, ready for a motion if you are, council?
I'd make a
Go ahead.
I'd make a motion that we approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Greg this time, seconded by Danielle. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously.
All right, council, we recently closed on the sale of our bonds for the wastewater treatment plant. Is Jason online? Great, let's go ahead and turn the time over to Jason Birmingham. He's going to present on the sale of these bonds, and it'll be good to hear from Jason.
See how it works here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Jason.
Okay.
Hi,
Great.
Jason. You look good.
Well, thank you. You all look well. Congratulations. Thank you for permitting me just a couple of minutes this evening. I've prepared on your screen a quick presentation relative to the wastewater treatment revenue bonds. And first of all, we closed that transaction today, a $36 million bond issuance that provides proceeds in excess of $40 million that the city will construct its expansion of the wastewater treatment plant. Great effort by the underwriting group that we worked with city, and they provided a lot of benefit as we went through the marketing process. So I thought I'd just flip through just a couple of slides tonight and see if the council has any questions. This first slide that's coming up, you can get a quick perspective of what the U.S. Treasury note has done over the past 10 years, as you consider where interest rates have been over the prolonged period over these last few years. It's important to note here when we priced the bonds, which was on the 13th of May last week, we literally hit a low point in the marketplace, not only for a 10-year trading period, but for a 30-year trading period at 0.64%, as that you can see there on the screen. So although we were pricing in a relatively strong low interest rate environment and market, with the COVID-19 issues that everyone's been dealing with, there was some subtleties in the market that because of the city's high grade credit of AA- and its overall financial picture and financial management, we were able to be into the market with little supply from other issuers and a lot of demand from investors. This next slide just quickly is kind of a similar graph, obviously, trajectory in terms of interest rates. But this shows where municipal bond prices or interest rates have been over that same period of time. And so, like the Treasury note being an average more close to the 3.2 range, now we're at a low of 0.64. The municipal market has similarly been significantly lower than where it historically has been. So there's two measures here. One is a 20 GO bond index, and it's basically 20 high grade, AAA, AA plus, high grade credits and how they trade in the public market, in the secondary market, and that is a 25-year term. And then the 11-year GO bond index is 11 larger GO issuers on general obligation bonds, but a shorter period, typically a 20-year period. Anyway, you can see interest rates have been significantly beneficial over the course of the last year and beyond. This is just another benchmark to show when we got into the market, when we started back in February, the 1 year was a 0.86% going all the way out to our wastewater bonds had a 25-year maturity. So on the very highest grade paper, it was about a 1.79. And then we were hit with the COVID pandemic, and you can see it shot up there on March 18th and, significantly put us in jeopardy of getting this transaction done. So we decided to wait for the market to rebound a little bit. We put it on hold. That was the benefit of the negotiated sale. And we're able to bounce back into the market just last week, May 13th. And so you can see that we weren't quite as low as kind of the very lowest point, which was February 12th, but a significant improvement just over the past 2 or 3 months. I think this is probably the area that I wanted to illustrate the most, just so you could see, and this is hard to see on your screen, I know, but it's an indication of the demand for the city's wastewater bonds. The bar chart, the graphs, as you can tell, depict individual bond purchase orders. We had 36 million and change to offer to the bond market, and we got investment orders from more than $111 million worth of orders. So we were more than 3 times subscribed, and it was really a great indication of the strength of the city's credit and just the marketing effort that we did previous to pricing the bonds on the 13th. But that's significant. You can see the interest and demand. This next chart, kind of the last one I kind of wanted to focus on, is it gives you a summary of all the investors that had an interest, that put in orders for this, for the bond issue for the city. You can see some of the major names: Travelers Insurance, State Farm. We had Northern Trust. We had one particular bond fund, interestingly, that's a Utah tax-free municipal bond fund, is the Aquila Group. They also came in with an order. But you can see most of this was institutional purchasers and large block size purchasers. And that really helped to drive down the interest cost, the total interest cost of this project. I'm just going to turn to probably the final component that I think might be helpful to see is, fast forwarded. This is in an appendix in your package. It's just the summary of, we issued, and I know this might be a question, but we issued $36,090,000 worth of bonds. But because the market purchased these bonds at a premium, we reoffered those at 4.3 million. So in essence, the bond holders or bond purchasers purchased the bond for $40+ million in order to get us 40 million in net bond proceeds. I'll just circle this main point here, which is the true interest cost. It's a 25-year transaction, but the net effective interest rate came in at 2.54%. So that's basically a way to look at, well, what was our cost of borrowing this money over 25 years? Early in this process, we were estimating this to be closer to 2.8%. As we started fine-tuning it, selected an underwriter, got the rating, went through the process, we were able to drive that down almost 30 basis points, which, is just about $1.4 million in net present value savings. So it was a great collective effort, a team effort. The city staff played a big role in preparing this for the market. We're grateful for the opportunity to be able to help the city to kind of prepare it and get it ready for a market that was ready for municipal paper. And just on I guess, a commentary. We kind of hit the market ideally. Anytime before that would have probably been 30 or 40 basis points higher. Most of the time that we've seen after it, even though interest rates have continued to compress a little bit, there's been a lot more supply that's taken some interest away from some of the investors. So we kind of hit it at an ideal time. And now the real work begins, starting to construct this phase of the project. With that, is there any questions? Turn it back to you, Mayor, if there's any questions I can help answer.
Thank you so much, Jason. Council, any questions that you have for Jason? Obviously, I'll just make a blanket statement. This is why we use Jason, and the firm his name is on the moniker of is because they do a very professional and wonderful job for us. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. In their case, I think we were both. They were good. We were lucky. Given this time, I wasn't quite sure how this would go, honestly. But clearly, and he mentioned this, we were looked at, we were viewed at as a very good risk. Would you say that's correct, Jason?
Yeah, in fact, we had a number of investors indicate that, why weren't you issuing more like 60 or 70 million? We need that paper.
Yeah, so that's excellent news. And council, if you've had a chance, once you've had a chance to ask any questions, I'd love to have Scott Taylor just maybe come forward and he can just remind us and the public, most importantly, of what this is doing in terms of the next phase of the project. But council, any questions or comments you have for Jason Birmingham?
I just tell Jason thank you. Great job, and it's good to see we're still bouncing back in some areas. So, thank you.
Yeah, Jason,
Thank
that true interest cost and, that $1.4 million savings, that's huge for our citizens. So thank you.
Yeah, and that's a credit to, a lot of good effort and work, but I think timing's ideal. But the city is viewed as a very good credit. It's interesting, as some other deals have now come to market in Illinois, Missouri, Wisconsin, Michigan, places that have been hit. It's amazing how well Utah is viewed nationally from the investment community. And it's a tribute to, I think, great fiscal practices. I know you're going to review budget elements and other things, but you've always had a great conservative approach. I think it shows when it comes to the cost of getting money. You're received so well. So,
thank you, Jason, and I do want to applaud our staff, Trevor, Deanna, Adam, who else? Sean, was he involved a little? And and there is a lot of work.
Scott also.
Of course, Scott, in preparing all this that makes it happen. I know there's a lot of work because I had to sign about, 60 times, I think, and if someone generated all that paper, and so I don't know who did that, but it's Jason and it's our folks and his staff as well. So, Greg, anything that you would add before we ask Scott to say a few words?
I think it's been said. That's a great interest rate. Pretty happy about that. So
yeah, that's a. And again, we don't like to borrow unless we have to. I did want to mention that too, Greg. You probably don't like to borrow unless you have to, and so that's the wise fiscal management that Jason referred to. That we're standing on the shoulders of, those that have been doing that for many, many years. That makes this happen, and I don't remember, Scott. You'll tell us, but the first big chunk of this project in the first phase we paid for with cash, and the balance is being paid for with these bonds for our wastewater treatment center, and that's important. It's nice that we could do that, or we would have been coming with 70 or 80 million, Jason. So we're glad to not have to borrow any more than we must, and this will be paid for through the fees that we all pay, and some of our other surrounding cities that use our wastewater treatment center pay to receive that service. So Scott, maybe just give us a few words about, again, mostly for the public, so they realize what we've done maybe and what we're doing now with these next phases.
And it was a pleasure working with Jason on this bond. I was joking with him a little earlier today. I had forgotten how difficult all the paperwork and all that bond stuff is, and I was joking that I think the easiest part of the project is going to be the construction for the next 24 to 36 months. But we are wrapping up construction of phase 1. The plant is totally functional. The contractor's just doing cleanup work right now. We expect within probably 3 weeks it'll be completely finished and out of there. Phase 2, which is what these bond proceeds will be used for, is out to bid right now. The bid opening will be June 2nd, and we anticipate construction will begin around the first part of August. And we're really looking at a 3-year project to complete this. But we're excited for it. It's going to be a great facility. We're hoping to get the city council out soon, possibly to look at the first phase, completed project, and then it'll probably be another 3 years before we have another opportunity to tour out there again.
Wow. Well, we appreciate it. And again, just the planning and preparation and the design work, the bidding, all the things that have to happen for the contract to get started. Again, lots of work by you and your staff. And so thank you, Scott. We are in capable hands, we know.
Well, thank you.
Thanks very much. And in 3 years, we'll be able to see what, $40 million looks like. And we will get out there. We'll work with Adam to get us out there in the near future to look and see what about $30 million looks like. Okay.
Greg and I went out. It looks like giant water slides.
It does. I don't recommend using it in that way. I've gotten a close look, but yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so Adam, I don't believe we need to take any action other than, again, thank you, Jason. I appreciate you making the time to do this presentation for the public and for the council.
Absolutely. Thank you and congratulations. This was a great transaction, and it'll keep you, going. It'll keep you flushing for a while.
Going and flushing. Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
Jason.
you so much.
And thanks again to staff.
you.
Great job,
Yep.
everybody. Thank you.
Okay,
All right,
Adam.
item number 3 then is a public hearing resolution to review amendments to the current fiscal year budget, and we're going to have Deanna Berklasa to present those to us.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff, for cleaning up. Just want to make sure we model the correct behavior. Hi, Deanna.
Hi. Well, good evening. It's kind of nice to be able to stand here in person after so long. I do want to say I don't want to take too much credit for that wastewater treatment bond. A lot of the credit here internally goes to Trevor and to Tiffany and to Scott. They really worked hard on that. And it is really, really neat to see that happen. I am just going to go through these a little bit quickly. The numbers and everything that's going on here, all the debits and credits, are really cool to us nerdy accountants, but to you, I'll just try to explain what's really going on and focus on the detail of the bottom line numbers. The first couple of pages are related to our general fund, and then the next page, a couple of pages are related to our other funds. The very final page, if it's page 5, is actually the RDAs, and that will be held in a separate agenda that we'll cover. And there's a couple of items on that one. So the first item here is a budget opening in the amount of $33,000. And this is just to get our fire station number 6 equipped so that we could fully staff that fire station due to the growth in that area and with the delay in getting the Little Valley Station up and going, we, as the council, you made the decision to upgrade that station, and now we have full staffing at that fire station. So that's $33,000 for the equipment and the renovations. Number 2 is for our police department. This is a multiple request from the police department, and essentially it's to increase our budget by $345,000, predominantly for the full-time wages. Is for a couple of retirements that we had that we did not anticipate. So we're increasing the budget for that. And also, when we do the police department's budget, they have 120 police officers, and typically we have some turnover there that we are able to use what we call a turnover lag in order to fund a couple of positions in the budget. That's worked wonderful for us to use that turnover lag. The ideal thing would be, though, that we're fully staffed and that we don't need to use that turnover lag. And this is part of the case for the, part of that budget opening. They also went a different route with their telephone services. The patrol officers used to use their cell phone also as a Wi-Fi hotspot for their computers. And they went away from that so that there wasn't any conflict with using their phone and their computers at the same time. So they use an independent Wi-Fi for that, and that did increase our costs by about $40,000. We also had the opportunity to take on some horses, or maybe not an opportunity, the challenge to take on some horses this year, and so we did have to pay for room and board for some of those horses in addition to the cost of maintaining them. And so that actually increased our budget by about $35,000. We did sell those horses, and we did have some revenues, a small amount that I just did not put in the budget opening, but we did receive a token of revenues for those. That's budget opening number 2. Budget opening number 3 is actually a good sign. Our tennis and our pickleball program is very popular, and so due to the additional participation, we're having to increase the budget there by $61,800. However, they're expecting revenues in the amount of $69,750, so or $68,750. So there's a little bit of a net profit on that one. Item number 4 looks like a lot of numbers, but what we're essentially doing is we're increasing the general fund budget by $102,100. This past year, we implemented as part of our new compensation program where our employees could convert their sick leave to a cash payout. And not knowing what the results would be on that, we kind of just budgeted a placeholder amount, knowing that we would have to come back at some point and actually allocate those amounts to the different departments. And so you can see how the numbers shake out there over all of the general fund departments. Item number 5 is in relation to that. So our placeholder amount was $432,000. Taking the 102 that we're actually allocating left that residual amount of $329,900 that we're actually reducing that budget by. That we no longer need. Item number 6 is, so now we're stepping over to the other funds. That finishes the general fund items. The other funds, item number 6 is, we had money budgeted to do a secondary access road behind the George Washington Elementary. We weren't able to do that, and so we actually took that money and reallocated that to the Bloomington Hills Drive pedestrian walkway, a safe walkway to school.
I think it's underway, isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
So that's item number 6. Budget opening number 7 is, you're probably all familiar with this. The city did provide $250,000 to the Greater Together Business Resiliency Fund to help our local businesses with the downturn, the economic downturn caused by the COVID pandemic. That was $250,000. It was an obviously unforeseen emergency that we do have the ability to increase the budget for. Number 8 is, this is for the Economic Development Project Fund to issue an interfund loan to the Central Business District Community Development Area, CDA. That district we have not invoked yet. It's not taking tax increment. However, we had obligations to the developer to pay for some infrastructure costs, to participate in some infrastructure costs. And so those costs were $404. In the meantime, until we invoke that district, we're going to have to loan the money from one fund to another, to the CDA. And then once we invoke that district in fiscal year 2022, when we start getting property tax increment, we'll pay back the loan. So this is a housekeeping item. It's still within the city, and loaning funds from one to the other.
That was just for, was that just City View? I'm looking at
That was
it
for
there.
City View.
Yeah.
Yes. Item number 9 is also for the City View area, the alleyway area that is a public area that we needed to put signage there, some bollards, some furnishings, so that our citizens could enjoy that area. And so that's for $50,000. Item number 10 is this Sand Hollow Aquatic Center roof replacement. We did underestimate the budget at the first of the year. We allocated $1,083,000 to that budget. When the bids went out and the design was complete, the actual total cost came in at $1,390,000. That project is underway right now, but we do need to increase that budget for $306,500, and that will come from our fund balance in our capital projects funds. So it's in our reserve. It has no impact on our general fund and so forth. Number 11 is, this was for the trail, the Virgin River Trail and the Rustic Trailhead, which is over off of 1450 South behind the Maverick. It's in that vicinity across the street from the Summit Athletic Center. We extended that trail all the way down to the Springs Park, which is in the Springs subdivision. But at the same time, we also did some erosion protection projects in the Virgin River and then upstream in the Santa Clara River. Because we combined those 3 projects together and we did not originally intend to combine them together, we did increase some additional design costs and construction management oversight costs. And so that was $64,000, and it was about an 8% increase overall to the total budget, which is pretty reasonable. Number 12 is for some additional maintenance projects that the Washington County Flood Control Authority will reimburse the city for at 100%. So the total of that is $143,500, and the projects are included in the narration there. We'll be doing some vegetation management near the Southgate Golf Course, Virgin River Blackberry Court area, and the Sunbrook Golf Course, some sediment removal in that area. And again, the Flood Control Authority will reimburse the city 100% for that. Moving to the next item, number 13. This one looks really kind of crazy with the numbers, but I'm just going to summarize. It's basically 2 things are going on here. Because we canceled the City Hall expansion project, and because we canceled the police building expansion project, we were actually going to bond for those projects in the tune of $15 million with the state CIB board. Because we took those projects away, we now have to take the money, the bonding out, the projects out of what we call the Municipal Building Authority Fund. And that's everything that you see that has a number 43 in front of it. And we now have to move those projects back over into our capital project fund, because we're still incurring design fees, engineering fees, and architectural fees and fees of those nature up through the end of this fiscal year. And so we're rebudgeting the City Hall expansion project for $500,000, the police building expansion project for $100,000, the facilities parking project. We're actually reducing that budget from $1,245,000 to $1,145,000. So we're leaving $100,000 in that budget for that project. And then we do have a couple of buildings that we rented in anticipation to accommodate the employees temporary relocating, and that will be $160,000 to the end of the year. And then the other numbers, as far as appropriated fund balance, that's just kind of a balancing numbers to get us back in line with the funding and so forth. That's what number 13 is. And number 14 is with the dispatch center relocation, there have been a few change orders to that project. Some of them are for the dispatch center, $80,000, $500 to increase the cost for the consoles and some miscellaneous change orders. And then $92,000 to do a few upgrades while we're in there that will help our technology services and our leisure services departments that are also part of that building as well. So that budget opening is a total of $172,500. And number 15, again, looks a little odd with the numbers, but essentially when we entered into the agreement for the $26 million airport runway reconstruction, the city of St. George has a match of 9.15%, which we pay for out of our PFC funds, which is passenger freight or passenger facility charge. So all of our airline passengers pay into this facility charge, and it can only be used for improvement type projects. So we use it towards our match. When we entered into that agreement, we did not at that time have the fund balance to pay for the full match. So we were going to take some of it from a road bond fund that we have. Turns out that we had a really good couple of years, and that PFC fund is to a level that we can use 100% PFCs towards our match, and we don't have to use any other funds for that. So that's a great thing. Then we can use those other funds for another project on another day. And that takes us through the budget openings. And so hopefully I explained that all right, but if you have any questions, go ahead.
I just want
Council,
to
yeah.
I just want to say what an amazing job she does. Not only can she take those numbers and work it, but she talks it really confidently with that much money. It's just amazing. So we appreciate what you do for us and how you take care of the budget. You do an amazing job. So thank you, Dee.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, you're awesome, Dee. Help me understand why we're not invoking the district until 2022. Is that a budgetary decision?
Yeah, it is. So we want to invoke the district at a timeline that most of the building, the new growth has occurred because it's predicated upon property tax valuations going up with a new building. So if a building is not fully constructed, or like Joel Plaza or City View, if it were still raw ground and they hadn't started constructing on it and we invoked it at that point, and it's only a time certain, so 15 years. So we want to wait until the value of that reaches kind of its peak, invoke it at that time, because then we maximize our tax increment that we have coming back to us. So if we invoke it too early, we diminish that tax increment. So we're trying to time that with when City View and Jewel Plaza are completely finished. And right now all their phases are not completed, and that's estimated to be fiscal year 2022, but it's actually January 1st of 2021, or no, sorry, 2022. All these fiscal year and tax years, kind of, yeah. So that's why.
I knew there would be a perfect explanation that I didn't understand at all, and you explained it perfectly. Thank you.
Helps us pull all the money that essentially the incremental increase in the tax revenue that can help them, meet our commitment to them and their ability to kind of deliver on the project as planned. So, for those things that are deemed to be of public benefit.
Right.
I was curious on that. So when we invoke the CDA for the small loan that we put in there, how long do we anticipate it takes to pay it back? Is that
on the 404?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer off the top of my head on that, but probably it could be the first year or a couple years.
Okay. Yeah, it's
into
relatively
it,
quick.
not too much longer
That's what
into
I
it. Yeah.
I had a question on item number, as I was reading through it earlier, item number 10.
Okay.
So that change order that we have, because we decided to repaint the trusses, 70,000 trade order, that seems pretty steep for a change order on that. Just a comment on that.
I can have Mark come up and, is Mark still here?
Yep, he's there.
There he is. Okay, I'll step 6 feet to the side.
Okay, Jeff, give Jeff a second, Mark. Thank you, Mayor. As far as we know, everybody's healthy, but that's as far as we know, right? So. Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely an 80s thing, wasn't it? For
Thanks,
sure. Okay.
Greg, that change order, there was discussion, we talked extensively to the project engineer about the need for that, and this would be our only time to do that. It's as much about protecting the corrosive metals underneath as it is about the aesthetics of the project. And I think those spans are actually a lot larger than you think they are, and so the accessibility to them is pretty difficult. I mean, it needs cranes and lifts and things to get to it. There's no better time to paint that when we're actually painting on an old canvas. In other words, the paint was dripping onto the old fabric surface, and so we're making a mess and doing it while they're there. So when we put the new fabric underneath it, it looks nice and clean. But it is expensive. But it was absolutely necessary. We did have some corrosion that needed to be treated as well. In addition to just paint, we needed to grind out some of the rust and things on the trusses. So there was a lot involved in that specific change order. And we felt that we only have one time in the next 25 years to do it, and this was the time. So we recommended the change order.
No, I appreciate that, Mark.
Yeah,
I
bet. It's a little more extensive than just paint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Thanks for the clarification. Any other questions? Okay, Jeff, go ahead before Dee goes back, if she needs to. I think we're going to talk a little bit more about the RDA side of this a little later. Is that right? Would that be the only reason you'd be staying longer, Dee? So maybe can we do that sooner than later?
Let's do it.
Yeah. So first, we probably need to open the public hearing, correct? Yes.
That's right.
So I will do that in this vast audience. Open the public hearing for anyone who may have come to ask questions or provide comments, and this includes those on the Zoom call. If there are comments, if you would just make yourself known, either by going to the center bottom of the screen and listing that in the chat, or if you have to and you have video, you can even raise your hand like this, and we'll be monitoring that. Any comments on this item, which is number 3 on our agenda today? James, do you see any? No. Nobody making an indication? No one in the room?
Unfortunately, participants are not able to join by video chat.
Okay.
By default, so if they're not able to, they can use their remote phones.
Okay. All right, then I will close the public hearing and come back to you, council. If you're so inclined, we would ask for a motion to approve the resolution which is have been presented, these amendments to the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget.
So moved.
I'll second.
Brian makes the motion, seconded by Greg. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Brian, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Deanna. And now, why don't we, if we could, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn from City Council and reconvene, Sean, tell me if I get this right, into the Neighborhood Redevelopment Agency of the City of St. George. Yeah, convene. Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Greg, seconded by Danielle. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Motion is approved unanimously. So we are now operating as, I think, board members correct? Isn't that cool?
Well, I looked at this on the agenda and I was like, I wonder who the Neighborhood Redevelopment Agency is.
That's us.
I didn't even know I was on that.
Yep,
It
it's
does
one of the.
not come with a
Really add
raise.
that to my
It
resume.
doesn't. Did you hear that? It doesn't come with a raise. All right, Adam, or whoever's going to lead us through this.
Well, this
Maybe
item
D?
is essentially the same as the one that you just previously heard. D, are there any other items that you need to discuss?
There's not. I'll just mention that number 1 and 2 are just a factor of if we get increased revenues, then we have some obligations to transfer some money to our housing fund. And so that's all that item number 1, 2, and 3 is just a little bit more on an incentive. And then number 4 is the flip side of that interfund loan for City View.
Any questions on this, council? I will need to do a public hearing on this as well, I believe. Yes. But any questions? Probably not, since this is our second look at these 4 things. 4? Yes. Okay, then I will open the public hearing on this item, item number 1 of the Neighborhood Development Agency, that's regarding the amendments of this budget for the fiscal year 2019-2020. Anyone online? No. Anyone here in person? Doesn't appear so. Then I will close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for your action if you're so inclined.
I would make a motion that we approve the amendments to the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget for the
Second.
St. George Redevelopment Agency.
Sorry, Greg.
That's okay.
Still second.
Okay. So the motion made by Greg and seconded by Danielle. Any discussion? Seeing none, this time all in favor, starting with Greg, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. And it looks like we need to approve some minutes if you're so inclined. They were included in your packet. Any questions? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to approve these minutes from August 1st, 2019 and November 21st, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by, what is your name? Brian, seconded by Danielle. Any discussion on the motion?
My only question is, can we approve minutes from a meeting that we were not present at?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
It seems weird, I know, but yes, you can. Correct, Sean?
That's correct.
Yep. It's kind of weird,
It
but
does seem weird, but yeah.
We could wait another 6 months until our next board meeting. That's
No,
the
it's-
problem. We
I
just
don't-
don't have them that
I don't have
often.
any problem with it. I was just curious.
Okay, so we need every vote.
all right. If there are no other comments, then all in favor of the motion, say aye. You can do it all
Aye.
together.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. That motion is approved unanimously as well. Nothing else in that meeting, correct?
That's right.
So
That's
then
it.
what I'd ask now is for a motion to adjourn from the Neighborhood Development Agency meeting and reconvene in City Council.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is by Danielle, seconded by Brian. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Welcome back to City Council meeting.
So
I
that
know it's
takes
been a
us
while.
to item number 4, and this is a housekeeping item that will allow us to maintain compliance with recent changes to state law regarding the Planning Commission. Sean, any clarification or points that you'd like to make on this item?
Yeah, there are several significant changes that I think we ought to discuss, and there's one change from what you were given in your packet that I'd like to propose as well in the language. So, as Adam said, there were some changes, as usual, to our LUDMA statutes for the state of Utah. This, however, is not in our, if you'll notice, it's not in Title 10 where our land use ordinances are. This is in Title 2 where we have our Planning Commission duties. So if you have the packet with your line numbers on there, I could go through these by line numbers and just explain briefly what we're doing. In line number 39 and 40 through 43 and 44, we're just tracking some changes that the state law made regarding the duties of the Planning Commission. Go down to 54. This may seem pretty innocuous, but it actually is pretty significant. This right here says that a land use applicant that can appeal is only an adversely affected third party. And I know what you're going to ask what that is. And we say, well, it's the same thing as Title 10-9-103, because we didn't want to have to change it every time there's a change at the state level. An adversely affected party means a person other than a land use applicant who owns real property adjoining the property that is the subject of a land use decision or land use application, or will suffer a damage different in kind than or an injury distinct from that of the general community as a result of the land use decision. And this was a result of negotiations with the Property Rights Coalition, who were concerned that the previous language there was so broad that anyone in the community could challenge a land use decision. So this narrows that in scope to those who can show either some kind of special damage or unique damage, or is adjacent to that property. Going down to line 60, again, just referring to the code as far as the definition goes that I just explained to you. 65, overall, what we were trying to do this year when we changed LUDMA, the Land Use Development Act, Management Act, was to say that we wanted to clarify the role of the Planning Commission. Sometimes there was some confusion on whether or not the City Council had the right to change or amend or do make a whole new decision on a recommendation of the Planning Commission. Well, we thought it was clear before that was the case, but we had enough questions about it that we decided to make it absolutely clear. That's what these will be doing. It just says the City Council may adopt, modify, or reject the Planning Commission's recommendation, so you have broad jurisdiction to do that, and power and authority. The City Council, in sole discretion, may refer an item to the Planning Commission for further review and recommendation. Something else we put in the statute just to say that if you feel like you didn't have enough information, or you feel like maybe some information was presented to you that wasn't presented at the Planning Commission level and you want their input on it, you could send it back.
Can I ask about that one, Sean?
Yes.
So I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. So we can adopt, modify, or reject, but we may send it back to them, but we don't have to.
You don't have to.
Right.
Nope.
Okay.
Totally within your
So if we change
discretion.
something, it doesn't have to go back through Planning Commission. It only will
Right.
go back through Planning Commission if that's our direction.
If you decide that it's so significant that you didn't think they had all the information, you would like to get their input, you could do it. But you also could just make the decision here at a council meeting after receiving that input from the applicant or residents, whoever it may be. Okay?
Flush.
The next item, line number is line 68, says that you may consider in your sole discretion the Planning Commission's failure to make a timely recommendation as a negative recommendation. If the Planning Commission fails to take action on an item within 60 days from the hearing date, if an applicant has requested that the Planning Commission not take action on the item, then we'll toll that time period until they tell us in writing, okay, we want it put back on, and then that clock starts ticking. Now that 60 days, we went back and forth as staff, John and Victoria and I, trying to decide what the perfect, whether it's 90, 60. Remember, you don't have to pull that trigger. That's only giving you the ability to. So we finally decided on 60 days, you could change that if you would like. But what it does is give you the opportunity that if the Planning Commission is not taking action on it after 60 days, you can say, look, we're going to deem it a negative recommendation. Staff, send it on up to us with that negative recommendation, and we'll make a decision at the City Council level. So hopefully it will be used very rarely if things are running smoothly. And again, it's up to your discretion. So if you feel comfortable with the 60 days, that's what we'll leave in there. And I don't know if, John, if you have anything that you want to add to that. Okay.
Council, any thoughts on that? Sean, that's what you're asking for,
Yes.
right?
I'm just trying to think what would be what were your debates about it? Explain to me your discussion between 60 and 90.
Is how long should an applicant have to wait if a Planning Commission is going back and forth amongst themselves saying, we don't know, we're not quite sure, we're going to table it because we can't make a decision.
Okay, then I think 60 is more fair.
Me too.
How often has this happened? Is this an occurrence that you've seen?
No.
Not so much here.
But we also there are some unique cities in the state. Adam probably could tell you that. So, and
Adam's smiling under that mask.
and so that's why we put that in the law at the state level. So we decided since it's in statute, we probably should just adopt an ordinance so that's clear what we want to do on that, knowing that you all have that discretion to say, no, we're not going to call that up. We're going to wait for the Planning Commission because we think they have a good reason to be asking or delaying this
Great call.
request. Okay,
So let's leave it at 60 is what I'm gathering from the council. Okay.
we'll leave it at 60 then. On line 73, it says nothing in this section limits the right of the city to initiate any of the proposed actions that are described in the section. There was some question before on whether cities could initiate some of the actions that are in this section of the code, and we're saying, yep, nope, city can do that. They can be the applicant if they want to and bring something before the Planning Commission. And then last, on 75 in this section, just saying that the Planning Commission only has those powers that you delegate to them in your ordinances. Next is general plan preparation. Again, just to summarize, this is just saying that the Planning Commission makes a recommendation on the general plan, and that you all still have the ability, after your public hearing, to make whatever decision that you deem appropriate. So making sure that it's clear that you have that broad authority. Now, this is the one where I'd like to add some language on 83, line 83 right now, with the new sentence that starts there, that begins with after public hearings. Right now it reads, after public hearings, the commission may adopt or amend the general plan and shall forward its recommendations to the city council. Actually, this should say that they make a recommendation. They do not adopt anything. They're only a recommending body. So the proposal is this, that it should read, after public hearings, the commission may make a recommendation to adopt or amend the general plan and shall forward its recommendations to the city council. So that's how we would like it to read.
Sound good, council?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the last change here again is just clarifying that the city council has the clear authority to make any recommendation or adopt any element of the proposed general plan or amendment. And you can also, if you'd like, provide suggestions to the Planning Commission if you decide to reject it, to say, we're rejecting it for these reasons, but we would like you, Planning Commission, to review, make some suggestions. We suggest you go back and look at the height, you look at the density, you look at the elements of the building, the elevations on the outside. If you think that you would like to get their input on that, you can send it back to them for that input. Now, that may seem pretty simple, but I think what that does is we've had that 1 year requirement, right, John, to come back. So this would just say, we're rejecting it, but we want you to go back to Planning Commission, and Planning Commission, we want you to consider these things and make another recommendation. So just giving you, again, another tool to keep something moving along with some input from the council.
Okay.
Okay, so that last one, so what you're saying is the way it was written before, it couldn't have gone back to Planning Commission, right? Like, we couldn't have even sent it back to them, is that what you're saying?
Here's what I would say out of that, is that we could, and the council has in some cases said, no, we want you to be able to come back again. We made some changes to state law to clarify that we could do that, so we decided why not just put it in our ordinance now to make it clear that you can do that. But we've always taken the position that you as a legislative body could still say, we don't feel like we have enough information, or we would like the Planning Commission to consider a few more changes to this and see if they can work together with them and come back. There have been times when, most of the time I would say, we've sent it back to staff and said, staff, work with them, figure out these things and come back with another proposal. But there have been times when they've wanted the input of the Planning Commission on that. And sometimes that's viewed negatively because they feel like they're going through the process again. But whether they have to go back to Planning Commission or come back to the City Council 2 more times because you feel like you haven't got all the information, a lot of times it's better just to get that from the Planning Commission level and the staff level and they have it come back to you. So I don't know if John wants to add anything to any of these changes, explanations for these changes.
Appreciate you working through it. Again, a lot of these things are formalizing things that we've done or interpreted the law and or our ordinances this way anyhow, but a few are actually making things more clear, and like with the days and so forth. So thanks for staying up on state law. It changes every year.
And we have more changes for Title X
Yep.
due to state law changes that John and Victoria are working on right now.
Very good. Council, any other questions that you have on this? And you notice there were a few, obviously, changes. So if you're inclined to make a motion to approve this ordinance, I would just ask that you say, along with the changes that have been discussed tonight.
And Mayor, those are on line 83 and 84 of your red line version.
Okay.
Are you looking for a motion?
Yes,
Mayor?
I'm ready if you're so inclined.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the ordinance amending Title II, Chapter 1 of the City Code as it relates to the Planning Commission powers and duties, including the changes mentioned by Sean Guzman on line 83 and 84.
Second.
We have a motion by Danielle and a second by Brian. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Greg, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. See, that's easy. We always have it easy, folks, but all the work's done by our staff. Thank you for making that happen.
All right, item number 5 takes us to land use. This is a hillside development permit. We'll ask our staff to cover this for us.
Let's see.
Hey, Wes,
Yeah.
while you're working on that, I met someone who has to be related to you, but I don't think he is closely, but you'd be interested. Colby Jenkins is the new director of the Atwood Innovation Center over at Dixie State. His father was the mayor of Roosevelt.
Oh, really?
Your father was the mayor of Provo. A couple of mayors Jenkins.
So they have to be related.
Yep, must be. Anyway, and he has a degree, this guy Colby, in political science. So I don't know, there's something going on with the Jenkins family. Anyway, so you'll have to meet him.
I will.
Long-lost cousin or something.
Probably so.
All right.
Thanks, Mayor. How do I get to the screen underneath? But can I do this right here?
Just got notified
Oh, yeah,
that
there you
Summit
go.
and Wasatch counties are moving from orange to yellow,
Hey,
per the governor. Interesting.
Danielle, it was Fletch.
Fletch. Was it Fletch?
Are you a cop? As far as
Yeah.
you know.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Chevy Chase? Mhm. A few other special lines from that movie. Okay, go ahead, Wes, before we, rapidly descend.
Okay, item 5 is a request to consider approval of a hillside development permit to allow for a 18-lot single-family residential subdivision called Desert Reserve Phase 1. So this is the project here. Here's Desert Canyon Southern Parkway, Desert Canyons Parkway. It's kind of over here to that far east end. You've already seen Desert Playa, which is this subdivision right here. So Desert Reserve are these units right here.
Okay, yeah.
And they did originally bring these units in too. However, during the Hillside review, there were some additional questions the Hillside requested, and so they pulled these units right here out of it. So really, it's just these units right here and these units here. Reason it was in the Hillside overlay zone, but they needed to address rockfall hazard and slope analysis map, which is here. They do have some slopes here, which is a wash right there, and then a slope there. Hillside recommended approval, indicating that, or recommending that these were non-contiguous to any hillside. They were insignificant. They were just small washes or outcroppings, and so they were comfortable and recommended approval based on, even though these are above the 20%, based on not on these slopes right there. And so here's the here's the subdivision, there's the rockfall hazard line right there. So the lots we're looking at tonight are right here and right there. Again, these lots were originally shown, but the Hillside requested that they not be approved right now. They requested additional information, and if they want to develop them, to bring that back with that additional information.
Questions, council?
So this is phase one for the front lots?
Yeah, phase one, right.
So it would phase two or additional phases, that would just be the lots
That
back?
would be these lots right there. Yeah, if they decided to come back and see if they could develop those lots. But yeah, phase one's just the lots on the north side and these two lots right here on the south side.
We just would want to make sure we're crystal clear what we're approving, and that they know that and we know that, right? Everyone's clear? Okay.
Right.
Any other questions? Ready for a motion if you're so inclined, council?
Let me get back here so I get the verbiage. And this is number 5, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I motion to approve the request for the hillside development permit to allow development of the 18 lot single family housing subdivision to be called Desert Reserve Phase 1 on 3.97 acres located east of the proposed Desert Cliffs residential project. This area is a part of Desert Canyon's master plan zoning PDR.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Brian and a second by Danielle. And any questions on the motion? Comments? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Wes. Number 6.
Okay, number 6 is a request to consider approval of preliminary plat for Desert Reserve Phase 1, which is an 18-lot residential subdivision located south of the future extension of Desert Canyons Parkway and west of Broken Way Drive. Let's see, it's located within the Desert Canyons development. So you just saw this again. Here is where the subdivision's again located, and then there's your layout again. So this time you can see they pulled out those lots because the preliminary plat is just for these lots right here. They do have 2 drainages that come down through here. You can kind of see one of them right there, and then this is what they call Cell Tower Road. There's a cell tower right there, and this leads up to the cell tower. There's a drainage again that comes right down through there. So their proposal is to construct 2 detention basins there on the south side of that road and intercept those washes and then pipe them down through their development right there and right there. The detention basins would be included in the plat. They would become common area to the association, Desert HOA. I mean, Desert Canyon HOA. I think it's called Desert Reserve HOA, actually. Anyway, yeah, Desert Reserve HOA. So they would be dedicated as common space to that HOA, and it would be their responsibility to maintain them. The owner would continue to own the hillside property there. Let me see, I had anything else on here. And then they are proposing where they do cut in right there and there into the hillside. They'll rock face those cuts to prevent erosion. And then they do have tiered walls between Desert Playa and here. That's what those dark lines there represent. Some of those will be 2-tiered retaining walls, some will be 1. And then their proposal, as you can see here, their proposal here is to then, where they have those areas between the walls, to put rock mulch in there to prevent weeds, and that would be their landscaping there.
Questions on this preliminary plat? Ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the preliminary plat for Desert Reserve Phase 1.
Second.
Motion by Greg with a second by Danielle. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Got that handled.
Okay.
Hey,
So-
Wes, can I ask a question before
Sure.
you start the next one? This isn't in regards to their project. I just want to know about drainage like that. I heard from somebody who, like, their HOA, basically the drainage initially hadn't been handled correctly by the builder. And then, but they didn't really find out till years down the road when they
Within
started.
the Desert Canyons development?
No, it was like Spyglass. It was so it's an old,
Oh,
old subdivision.
is that the one down
But
there?
until people started putting in pools and their drain, and really started using the
Right,
drainage, so
right.
year after year. Anyway, it was just interesting because, they didn't know the drainage was done incorrectly until years later. I'm just curious about this, just for my knowledge, when we're having developers put in these drainages, what's their responsibility for how long? And then at what point, does it become just the HOA's responsibility if there's an issue with it?
Yeah, so what they'll do is when they plat this, they'll dedicate that as common area to the HOA. It will then fall to the HOA to then be responsible to maintain those and keep them, clean and clear of weeds, and, they'll silt up over time naturally because you're taking water from off the hillside and then it pools there and the sediment settles out. So there's just maintenance that will be required every once in a while just to keep those clean and allow for the drainage to still pass through.
I think kind of what she's asking, Wes, is like in my subdivision, and mine is terrible. It's been that way since I moved in, but I didn't realize it till a good rainstorms come in and the top house gets flooded, and then it refloods into mine, and then I flood into the neighbors, but there was never anything put in there to keep that from happening. I think she was just
So
asking
basically, yeah,
what do
so-
we do? What do we do to make sure that that's being done?
On individual lot basis,
Right, like how are we inspecting to make sure that it's done? I mean, with the one I'm referencing, it probably was like a whole different city, different people
Yeah.
at the city. I don't know what the inspection process was at that point, but do we have a more rigorous inspection? I mean, because they actually dug this one up and it was built totally incorrectly. But, it was so many years down the road and it was like, well, the HOA just has to take care of it at this point, So I just want to make sure that we have like a
Till it's
rigorous
fu-
process.
Until it's fully developed, nobody really knows how.
so
and
you're
maybe
talking that on
maybe that's
individual
just the
lot
way it is.
basis, how does the drainage work? Is that what you're asking, or?
No, she's saying who's making sure that it's maintained.
Or
And that it's
Well,
done
built
correctly. That it's done
From
correctly.
the
Built
master
correctly.
plan,
Built
Yeah.
correctly
from the master plan
start.
to individual lots, how do we ensure that this area, with that known drainage coming down, will be handled correctly? And if there is a problem, who's responsible?
So these will need to be built with the subdivision, this and all the improvements put in that collects all that drainage. So that when the subdivision, before you can build any lots, before we'd approve it, these are considered part of the subdivision improvements. So that detention basin has to be built and as part of the improvements because it provides, the detention, it captures the runoff from the hillside and then conveys it through. So those are considered improvements to the subdivision and the subdivision would have to be built with that subdivision.
But then ongoing, because that's part of your question, Sean's going to answer this for us.
And
Because this is always, this always works. This
I'm going to
always works,
apologize
right?
because we think we kind of shotgunned you in the wrong place, and was just kind of a question. I think it started out, but this is probably
It's a very good question.
Question for a different time, and we shouldn't have done it in this setting. But I think we were looking for an easy answer, and it became into a different area. So we apologize.
Sean, come on, have some fun with this.
He's gonna.
Because this has been for how many years have I been around here? And how many years? Yeah.
And me for 12, 15.
The responsibility of the city to make sure that it's built according to plans. And that's the question that you were asking.
Yeah.
And it is the responsibility of the city, and that falls on Public Works. They review the plans, Wes is involved in that, and then they have inspectors that are to be out there inspecting them to make sure that they're building them to the standards that, or the approved plans that for the drainage.
Okay.
One of the problems we face is that not everybody develops all their property at the same time. So now you have, maybe a subdivision of 50 homes, but those streets dead end somewhere until they're built on, and now they're supposed to temporarily have areas where they can maintain or have that, that water flow to, but then, you know, I'll tell you that there are times when the property next door isn't developed for a number of years. So who's taking care of that area where they've put a little temporary basin so that it can catch the water, and who's cleaning that out? You're asking very, very good questions, and questions that council members have been asking for my 18 years here. And city manager grappled with for years, and because when it rains here, we get gully washers sometimes.
Yeah, the desert's a challenge.
Well, while we're on this tangent, we've seen issues from previous years, quite a few years ago. Have we seen, is there something that we should be, as a council, looking at closer? Have we seen issues recently, you know, as we've had recent plans and developments come through, or has everything been going smoothly recently? Anyone? I mean, that's just a question that we should ask, I thought.
Yeah, I think we're doing a pretty good job, but there's the things we can't control. Like Sean just mentioned, it's really tough. But Adam, any comments you'd
It's
make?
a universal problem. I mean, up north, it's always an issue with snow melt, for example, you know, and then another issue that we see a lot is people go in after they've done their pool, they've done their house, they go in and they make other improvements. Even something as simple as like leveling out a space to put a garden, that has a consequence. That could change your drainage, and so things that don't require city inspection, don't require permits, we have no idea that people have done things and it's affecting drainage, and we don't know about it until somebody complains. So it's a challenge. It's a never-ending.
Well, I just want to say, Wes, you and our staff is amazing, and we do a great job, and I don't think anybody meant to put you on the spot, but if in a bad situation, because I know it's frustrated me for a lot of years now, and I bought the property. I now take responsibility for the person below me, and I made a lot of changes, but it's just how I think we want to make sure in the future that somebody buys a property on these lower tier areas that they're not getting.
Agreed.
The same thing I got is a backyard full of water from 2 houses above me.
Yep.
And why did we not figure this out before? And I think that was kind of
That's
the
really
frustrating part. And we know you guys do a phenomenal job, and it's just frustrating to some of us that have got caught in that. And I think that's.
Sorry,
But thank
Wes, you can carry on.
I think
Don't ask any more
the
questions.
points are, no, it's good, and it's something, it's why we have to be cautious, and the staff does ask, I think, the right questions, and we try to make sure that they're built as they've said they would build them.
Right.
The problem lies in the time lapse, and then, as Adam mentioned, the modifications that happen years later that, you know, nobody knows about, and maybe weren't required to tell us, as Adam said. So anyway, but it's tough, and I think it's just we have to be vigilant, you know.
Mayor, and I could add to you, I think some of you have been on the council when we've looked at some of these plats, and they've said, well, the drainage is going to run between these 2 property lines, and we've said, no. It goes back to what Adam was saying, and that is people don't realize that's what it is, and they fill it in, they put their wall up, and now the drainage goes down to someone else's property. So that's a continual fight that we have, but it's been brought up by you all, and it's been brought up by staff before on some of these, and so these are all very good questions that I hope you continue to ask when you see the plats come in.
Well, because we'll catch some.
Are we looking at that on this one? You know, is it running between properties? I guess that's.
No.
Okay.
So these would be permanent detention basins. Otherwise, they couldn't build this development because of that drainage that comes down there and there. So those will be permanent, and that's why they have to have somebody in place to maintain them. Otherwise, they'll cause problems in the future. And so it's either the city or the HOA. They have HOAs out there. It really is their responsibility to then maintain those and keep those clear so that they can catch the water and convey it in the storm drain pipes.
So in this condition, in this situation, Wes, those are detention. In other words, it sits there for a while. Where does it go? Are they piped?
Yeah, they are piped.
So they're piped out to go into the storm sewer.
Right, they're piped to go out into the storm drain, you're right, and actually go out this way, and the Fort Pierce is somewhere right about here, and that's where they'll end up draining off into the Fort Pierce wash. Yeah.
And that's why it's important that they're built right, to your point, Danielle,
Right.
earlier. And it's why it's important that they're maintained, things don't get plugged or whatever.
Right.
And of course, designed right initially, so. Okay, like Sean said, it's good. We should keep asking the questions, and I know the staff is, so thank you. So we approved item 6 already, correct? That was after the vote. So now 7?
Okay. Item 7 is request to consider approval of a preliminary plat for Auburn Hills Phase 14 on a 40-lot residential subdivision located at the intersection of Fire Sky Drive and Carnelian Parkway. This is in the Desert Color Development. So it's right here. It's kind of on the south end of everything that they're developing right now. And that's kind of that. And so it's these lots right here. They do have trails right here that will be private, but they lie under the ownership of the Desert Color Association, but they are open for public use. And so they're not within the right of way. They're in the common space, but they are providing them for public use. They wouldn't just be private trails. And other than that, I think that's it on this one.
Questions for Wes? That one was easy. I'll entertain a motion if you're so inclined. Isn't that nice?
I'll make a motion to approve this preliminary plat for Auburn Hills Phase 14, 40-lot residential subdivision located at the intersection of Fire Sky Drive and Carnelian Parkway.
I'll second.
Okay, motion was by Danielle, and I'm going to give the second to Greg. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item 8 is request to consider approval of preliminary plat for a 6-lot commercial subdivision called Southbridge Center Phase 1. It's located at the intersection of 1450 South and River Road. Let's see, zoning is PDC. So this is the project right there. Obviously, there's 1450, there's River Road. So they're creating 6 lots in here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then making this a large lot. They're kind of leaving this large lot open because they're not totally sure what they want to do here. They have more ideas on what is going along the frontage right here on these lots. So it's these 6 lots. We did have them, as there was some discussion, and they've already, just so you know, you're aware, they've already approved their accesses through a traffic study that was done years ago. They'd have a right in, right out. I think it's right there. This would be a full access, and then a full access right here. We did have them look at, this property is also owned by them here to the south. It's zoned to R110 currently right now. General plan does show it as MDR, but the current zoning is R110. So we did have them look at it to make sure that they could provide access, through here for this residential development should it develop in the future. So they've shown that they can run a road from that cul-de-sac over to the other approved access right here. Here's the actual zone line right there that's commercial. The rest of this is residential. So you could probably get some lots here if they decide to keep it as an R110 zone. And then how they would develop this out would be up to them. But at least they could get a road that would provide public access to those roads. When they do develop this, or plat this, you can see it actually there's actually the property line's about right here. So it leaves a portion of this lot left, and then there's another lot right here that doesn't have access here, which is landlocked. And so before this plat will record, or with the plat recording, they'll have to merge those 2 lots to combine them into one so that there is access for this entire parcel right there, at least.
Staff's comfortable with this?
Yeah, I think it works right here. The road layout does right there. It would allow them to build lots there should they stay with the R110 zoning and this parcel right there.
I'm going to be really interested to see what comes forward down the road, pardon the pun, on this one.
I just in talking to them, I don't think their intention is to keep it R110.
I don't either.
And so, how that lays out, I guess, is a good question. And I think that's why they left out lots so large, is so it gives them some flexibility as to how that develops. as they know that they have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen on these lots right there.
Okay. Questions, council? I mean, I don't know how, Sean, that we consider what they've presented, but, again, future councils will be looking at what comes next. Does this owner own that piece? They do, didn't you say?
Currently, they own the whole, they own both parcels.
Or they
The only
will.
parcel they don't own is this one
Yes.
right here. They don't own
Yes.
that parcel right there. But it does have, you can see the driveway right there. It does have access off of that road right there. I'll just show you there again. We'd have access right there onto that road right there.
Okay. Okay. Well, council, if you're so inclined, I'm ready for a motion on this preliminary plat being proposed.
I make a motion to approve the preliminary plat for the South Bridge.
Stonebridge.
Yeah, Southbridge Center, Phase
Southbridge
1.
Center, Phase 1, 6-lot commercial subdivision located at the southeast corner of 1450 South and River Road.
Got a motion by, was that you, Brian, and then a seconded by Danielle? And it is noted as South Bridge.
Yeah, and then it would have that condition that they have to merge those two parcels for that, so it's not a landlocked parcel back there.
Okay, is that okay to make that clear in your motion, Brian?
Yes.
And in your second, Danielle? And just again noting, this is South Bridge, not Stonebridge. It was listed as Stonebridge on the agenda, so not to be confused. You're right, it's South Bridge. Any further discussion or clarification on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. How about that? All of our motions today were voted on successfully, unanimously, as we needed. So, any reports? And then I don't believe we need a closed session tonight, correct? All right. Adam, any reports from the city manager?
Happy Bike Month.
Yeah.
So last night I got to ride some trails at Desert Canyons. I had ridden some, but I rode some new ones. And I think I've got a new favorite trail. I just loved it.
Adam was telling me
we're
earlier.
so spoiled.
They're awesome.
We're so
huh?
spoiled here.
I
It's
know,
incredible.
The trails
so
out there are amazing.
yeah, they've done a great job.
The Burgesses deserve a shout out for those because they put a lot of time and effort into those. Impressive.
I was told, and I forget the name. I'd love to make the recognition, but I can't remember who. But I think it's Ed's son-in-law who took
It's
the lead.
Ryan. It's Ryan Thomas.
Yeah, took the
Thomas,
lead on
yeah.
the on the
Yeah.
design. Just well done. I loved it.
Is that the one that they got a bunch of volunteers as well for?
They did, yeah. Well, okay,
community?
so there's one called, did you ride Pushington?
I've ridden that before, but
Did you
last
ride the
night I
Secret
did
Sauce?
Secret Sauce and Claim Jumper.
Claim Jumper,
Yeah.
yeah. So the Claim Jumper and Secret Sauce is where they got all the volunteers.
That's how I remember him doing that. That's really cool. I got to go try it.
It's really impressive.
We've got an update going out to all employees in a few minutes after the meeting, just another COVID-19 update. But we're preparing to reopen to the public on Tuesday, kind of a soft opening. There's a lot to do there, a lot of considerations to continue to maintain the health and safety of our employees. So we're on that, spending a lot of time on it. I'm comfortable with where we are, confident in our ability to do this, and I think we're ready. So that's all for now.
Thank you, Adam. Again, we have a great team citywide. I appreciate what everybody's doing with all the different responsibilities that they have. So, and there's so much, as Adam said, that has to be considered. Shane is saddled with a bunch because of, the obvious, the fields and now competitive play being okay under yellow, but there's still requirements. I mean, there's just a lot of nuance in all this. And so you might have noticed SGMT has announced, and they've been working, I know, with Sean on kind of an update to their lease agreement. But they've announced I think they're reopening the Foreigner next week, or maybe even this week. It's for sure next week. And I believe Stage Door they're working towards theirs. All this is being done behind the scenes with our staff, and so, but I know, and Adam keeps pushing this with every staff meeting, those that are involved have to know the governor's plan and all of the appendices, that especially as it relates to municipalities, to make sure we do it right. So I have confidence that we're doing that. So thanks, Adam, and all of our department heads and everyone involved. Greg, any updates, reports?
No updates for you tonight.
Okay. Goes in a week, not too much happens, but it depends on the week, I guess. We had, I'll take my turn. We had the MPO DTEC meeting yesterday. I was the only one of our representation that could be there. I just wanted to let you all know. Danielle was there as a citizen.
I was there as a citizen.
Yeah, and we did talk about a couple of things related to the city. Probably thing to mention the most is there is I'm trying to think, was this in DTEC or the meeting after the meeting? It was probably more in the other one. But there has been this effort to do a potential shuttle bus service from St. George to Springdale. And there has been at our, frankly, insistence from St. George and others, an analysis done by Zions Bank Public Finance Group, and also with, I can't remember the name of the consultant. I can't remember. They're the ones we've been working with from day one on it. So they've got it back. It's almost complete. They're making a few final things for their report. That will be available in 2 weeks, and then we will be having another meeting with all of the mayors in the county and the commission, of course, the county commission. You'd be welcome to be involved in that if you'd like to, at least as members of the public. It's a public meeting. I will let you know when that is, but I know it's in June. I want to say it's, I'll just give you an indication here. I believe it is June 17th, and I believe it will be at about 1 o'clock. It will be after DTEC. And so that's a public meeting if you want to be involved. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty, but I will tell you this, the bottom line, Adam, I haven't even had time to tell you, the bottom line is they've got a model that looks better than we thought it would. It doesn't look like, for a 15-year run instead of 10, it looks like they may not have to dip into the sales tax for transportation with a smaller with a smaller number of buses, kind of a smaller system, I guess. But there's a lot of buts, and one of them is they need to decide who's going to operate it, and probably the best case scenario, and this is why I want to see the detail. Cameron's been involved, but Suntran. If Suntran runs it, they think it can be done better. And we have to ask ourselves as a city if we can do that. And so that's going to be the kicker. And I haven't seen any of the details, but basically we will be getting those details to see what they've assumed, to make sure that that they aren't just thinking we'll do it for free. They don't, by the way. But I want to see if and Cameron needs to see if they've appropriately captured the costs of us doing the maintenance, of us, housing the maintenance, and then all the other costs that go along with operating it. So, but I'm encouraged. It looks better than I thought, and now they're just kind of dotting their T's, crossing their T's, I guess, and dotting their I's is what I should say. And we'll see that in a couple weeks, and that will be something I can give to you all and to Adam and to Cameron to look at, and then we'll decide what we're doing.
What's the estimated start time or date?
Well, you know how this goes. If we go with electric buses, which, believe it or not, actually appears to be the better move. What's the name of that bus company that Alan Weston Scow works for? I'll say it wrong. It starts with a P. Anyway, they think, it depends on timing, how it goes. They think they could get us buses within 12 months if we make the commitment now while kind of demand's lower, which probably means that decision, at least the intent, the letter of intent, would have to be given to them before June's over. So that doesn't mean we're bound, but it means we've got to at least know enough that we're willing to do a letter of intent. So I think, it still would take at least that long anyway to get it all together. But it is encouraging, I'll just say, but the devil's in the details. So we'll look through that, and that's my biggest concern, is I want to make sure that that the assumptions are conservative enough. In fact, that's one of the things they're changing. They think that their kind of more optimistic projections might be a little too optimistic given COVID. Okay? I don't know if you've heard this. We heard this at DTEC, but UTA ridership is down 80%. 80%. And ours is only down on average about 30%. Now, we don't have anywhere near the kind of volume they do, but the 80%. So the concern is, will people get back on mass transit, especially while there are concerns, of spread of this virus. So hopefully we're past that once this gets going, well past it. But it's just an interesting thing. So they're going to revise those a little bit, and that will probably raise the cost by a couple $1 million actually, and take it from maybe break even or a little better to probably a couple $1 million over 15 years loss. And that's including the $15 million grant and the $3 million grant for the electric buses. But it's way better than I thought it would be. So we'll see where the revised numbers end up, and I'll make sure you get it. Was there anything else, Danielle, that you noticed? Yeah.
A possibility, I don't know if you want to talk about that yet.
Go ahead.
The missing link.
Yeah.
Do you have a date on that?
June 12th.
Is what
Friday, June 12th at 8 a.m. It is.
Okay.
We're nailing it down now to open officially the missing link between us and Washington. Thank you for reminding me.
You're welcome.
June 12th, 8 a.m. at, guess where? Sullivan Park in Washington City.
I know, I thought that was magnanimous of you to let it start in
Thank
another
you.
city.
Thank you. Adam and I talked about it. Mark and I talked about it as well, and David Cordero. We just thought, let's do what makes sense. And it just made sense to us to have, we won't probably even we may not do the traditional ribbon cutting, but we thought, let's start at Sullivan Park in Washington and go for a bike ride for anyone who wants to, for as long as they want to, meaning from Sullivan Park down to Sun River. That's what I'm going to do. That's what Danielle's going to do. I know it. But anyway, we will do that and keep it really quick. Shane McAfee will kind of be the MC, and then Mayor Nielsen and I will just offer some very quick remarks. I think it's appropriate, even though it wasn't their project, it links us with them in a very awesome way. And so, we got to put our money where our mouth is and, walk the talk in terms of, connecting and the whole Bike Southern Utah, or Bike Sout, was it? The stickers. So, we get to do that, and we will, of course, be recognizing very prominently UDOT. They will be there. Rick Torgerson's coming from UDOT, and, of course, Washington County Tourism. Kevin, I hope, will be there, and the commission will be represented. And even, frankly, I wanted to make sure we give a shout-out then to and now to the Fish and Wildlife folks that really helped to make it happen, in a permitting sense, because this is tough stuff to do right in the river. Danielle, you were going to say something.
No, I was going to say that I've noticed from Washington City that even just that connection has kind of lit a fire under them to better and further their trail system, because I think they're hearing from their residents, they really like it. And so it's been fun to watch them. They hadn't made a lot of progress on their trail system for a while, and all of a sudden they're doing all sorts of trails that will add, benefit to our residents also. So,
It's a big agenda of their new city council.
Yeah,
They
I've
really
noticed
wanna-
that. I
They really
like
want
it.
to do a lot with that trail system.
it's great.
Well, it's good, and it's great for recreation and tourism, and I think still most importantly for active transportation. I mean, this is a good route all along the river, and you can pop out so many places to commercial and residential areas. I think it's going to be really good.
I'm excited about it. I don't know if you've ever ridden the trails up in Park City, but I hope ours end up
Yeah.
with that feel where along the way you can drop into every commercial space, and it's great, especially as a visitor, but also as a resident. I'm sure they love it.
Yeah. Thanks for highlighting that. And again, of course, I hope you can come, but we'll remind you and get it on our calendars. Friday, June 12th, 8 a.m. Right, David? David's nailed it down with Ben over at Washington City, and they're really excited about it. So this is a big project, and it could have only been done with the help of UDOT and the county tourism. So, and of course, Millie and our staff have been great. It's almost done now. There's just some cleanup items, but the boardwalk, you guys, it's awesome. It's really cool. Only problem is people are going to be taking like wedding pictures there because it's really pretty along there. Okay, Danielle, reports.
I just had board meeting with the St. George Children's Museum, and I'll just mention, as I did last meeting, that our nonprofits, it's a challenging time for them as it is for everyone, but I just feel like they contribute so hugely to our quality of life here. And so I just hope that we remember them, and that when people have the opportunity that they support them, whether it be financially or with donated time, or the Children's Museum, they make most of their money, by people attending, obviously, and then also through donations, and both of those things have just basically been slashed. And so just a shout out to our nonprofits, how much we love and appreciate them, and just a reminder to keep them in the forefront of our minds. So I think that's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for representing the city on that board, and the other boards you're all on. Brian?
So, David, do you want to say anything about the Veterans Coalition? Do we have anything we really need to? Would you please?
I think this is my first time up here. As you can imagine, the American Legion Memorial Day commemoration is not happening. That's usually at our cemetery here downtown. The event at Sun River, though, is still going to happen. That's going to be 8 a.m. on Monday, Memorial Day, and it'll be a somewhat abbreviated ceremony than it is in past years, but still a nice thing. And
we're all invited, by the way. If you didn't get an invite, you're invited.
Yeah.
David, is it out at the...
It's at their Veterans Park, isn't it?
Which is out at the end of that
Yes,
road, right?
yeah,
Okay.
out at the end, And, it's a big enough place where I think there's going to be social distancing observed, and they usually have these different booths from different organizations. They won't have that this time, and so it's 8 a.m., so bright and early.
It's have you been there before? Okay, then you'll find it. It's
Thank
not
you,
right
Dan.
at the end of Sun River Parkway, but you go to that direction, then turn right and wind around. I can't either, but you can wind around and find your way pretty easily. If you can find a semi-address, would you send it out to us, David?
I'll forward a flyer.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. That's even better.
And then I spent the morning with Lieutenant Fuller on the Temple Springs Nature Park up there, and I think it's going to be an awesome event. It's something we really need to do. I've lived here for 45, almost 50 years, and I never even knew it was back there. But it needs a lot of attention, and we do need to help do this, because I think it would be a great asset to not only the community, but the college as well could use that for their students to get away and just kind of have a place to go study or something. But Lieutenant Fuller's passion is very, very heavy on this, and I think we need to support him 100% on this. And I'm excited. So I'll be asking for your help to do work projects with this, but I'm excited as well. And so I think this would be a fun project for the city.
It's a great little spot.
It is.
I think a lot of people don't know it's there.
No, it's got beautiful views of the city, and I've never even, I've been all around the city, and it's funny because I'm from the southwest portion of the city, and this being on the northeast side, or northeast side of it, I just never got over there. But it's an awesome place. It does need some work, and I think with his help and with James, he had James up there trying to figure out vegetation and what we want to take out, I think with his great mind, we can make this work and make a nice place out of it, clean it up. So
Might be a little unauthorized camping going on there, Sean, so.
there is a lot right now.
Yeah.
So, other than that, this feels a lot like the first day of school, and Jimmy and Michelle sloughed the first day, so it was kind of
Yeah.
it's usually my role to slough, but it's good to be back together. I really do appreciate being face to face again. Zoom's easy, but it's good to be back.
It is. We'll do the best we can to try to make it work. And let's see, Adam, in terms of next week, it would be a work meeting again at 4 p.m., right? And we'll be talking budget again. And I don't know if there are any other things we've got to slip in, but it's going to be mostly budget, if not entirely. Yeah. And then, we'd be back for a regular meeting on June 4th. And so and obviously this works really well, but we're shy two people. So we'll figure out how we're going to do that next time and just try to do the best we can. So.
They're going in that back room there.
You think we should do that? Yeah, we could vote on that.
Yeah.
Any other reports?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor.
Well, then, I think we're good. Sean, you don't have anything? Christina, have you got anything? Did we all get our benefits stuff in? And all right. Well, yeah. All right. Very good. Well, then, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Brian, second by Danielle. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I didn't hear any nays, so yeah, I heard all three ayes. We are adjourned. Thank you.